What's going on, Colts Nation? Appreciate you stopping by today. Today we're going to do more draft talk. We're going to talk about another cornerback. For whatever reason, a lot of people have been mocking the Colts getting another cornerback. I have a weird feeling we might go cornerback, even though wide receiver right now is what we think is going to be the need, right? Even if Michael Pittman Jr. does get paid, what else are we going to do at wide receiver? A lot of people think we could go in the first round, try to get somebody. But if that ends up not being the case, looks like cornerback is something that everybody, pretty much everybody's thinking the Colts are going to do. There's different cornerbacks from different people. But the last one that I saw for the Colts, I thought was interesting, and it was Field Yates' mock draft where he had Terrion Arnold going to the Colts, another Alabama quarterback. We had already talked about McKinstry before. Now we're going to talk about Arnold, where Terrion Arnold, in what I've seen of Terrion Arnold, and again, I don't watch a whole lot of college football. So what I've seen from him up to this point is a couple of highlight videos, and I watched one game of a full game replay, one of the full game replays, the quick go-throughs that end up on YouTube. I watched one of those, just kind of paying attention to him, paying attention to his matchups and what he was doing. And the notes that I came away with is, he is a very smooth athlete, right? The way he moves, like some guys on the football field, when you watch them, they just move different than the other guys, like especially in college. Like high school, of course, you can always kind of tell in high school who's going to be the guys that can go play college and who's not. Like that's pretty easy. But then when you're talking about the guys going from college to the pros, like some guys just look different. In college, Justin Jefferson was a guy that against most of his competition, he just looked different on the football field, and that's where Terrion Arnold is. He's a guy that just moves different. Even on plays where he gets beat, his recovery speed is so good that he's able to catch up with the receiver that's gotten past him. It doesn't happen very often. Now, one thing I've noticed through everything is that he is so sticky in coverage, right? And there's some things, again, with the level of competition he's going against, even though he's playing SEC guys, a lot of college guys don't go to be successful in the NFL. That's just the way it is. Select few guys are really good in the NFL, and then you have guys that just kind of stick around for a few years and go team to team, and then they're out. That's how the NFL works. And Terrion Arnold going against the guys that he went up against, there were so many times when I saw him and I thought, man, it doesn't even really look like he's running full speed, but he's right on the receiver's hip. Now you think about what he was able to do this past season. He played in 14 games. He had 63 tackles, which is really good for a corner. He had 6.5 tackles for loss, which means making plays in the run game, quick reactions to screen passes and things like that. Being able to get 6.5 tackles for loss. He had 1 sack, had 1 forced fumble, but in coverage, right? We're talking about his coverage, had 5 interceptions, 12 passes defended. And those stats right there, you compare those against other corners in the nation, he did amazing this season. I think somebody like that could be valuable, right? And it reminds, what I think of when I was watching Terrion Arnold is a guy like Isaiah Rodgers, where Isaiah Rodgers on the football field, he looks different. He was just never really able to put it all together as a corner, right? And of course, I'll speak for myself. I thought before he got suspended, I thought we were going to go into that season, he was going to become a star in the NFL. And that, of course, hasn't been able to happen because of the suspension. But Terrion Arnold, when I watch him, he reminds me of Isaiah Rodgers and what we were starting to see from Isaiah Rodgers in the limited playing time that he was getting while he was still playing. Now, another thing that Chris Ballard's going to end up liking about Terrion Arnold is he's 6 foot, so he meets that threshold, and he's 196 pounds. Now, for 6 foot, he has long arms, right? And those long arms help for pass breakups. That's just what Chris Ballard looks for in his corners, a guy that's a little taller, guy that has those long arms. Obviously, Kenny Moore a little bit shorter, but he has long arms for his size, and he's very good. So all in all, when you're talking about what he does in coverage, pretty much everything is good, right? Between being able to read what the play is going to be and being able to read what the receiver is going to do. There were a few times being able to play recognize is so important. He was running the route for the receiver. He's making his cut before the receiver makes his cut, and he's getting in front of the ball. That's how he got a couple of those interceptions. That's how he's gotten a couple of those pass breakups, is running routes for the receivers because his football IQ is so high, and being able to have the IQ and the athletic ability together and being able to have the skills to do so, right? Again, he's a smooth athlete, which means when he needs to, he's able to drop his hips, rotate his shoulders, and get bursting. And the combination of that with the level of awareness that he has, and as smart as he is, like he could be a very good player, which is why I feel like it's tough to see him making it all the way to 15. But there's so many different mock drafts and so many different things have come out, right? Brock Bowers, initially, everybody had him going 5 to the Chargers. And that's just not the case anymore. I had, Field Yates had him being drafted, I think, 15th or not 50, 16th or 17th in his mock draft, right? Like Brock Bowers is falling, so maybe that's an option for the Colts. But the Colts, presumably with Jelani Woods coming back, are going to be good on tight end, at least enough to not take Brock Bowers. So Terrion Arnold is a guy that's there. This is a guy that I would be okay with him getting. And the reason for that being kind of what we talked about with Nate Higgins, where he can play either outside, but I think he could be a replacement for Kenny Moore, especially if you're not going to pay Kenny Moore. Nate Higgins always a guy that I would rather, if we drafted him, then we keep Kenny Moore for 2 or 3 years and let Higgins kind of learn the position, maybe most of his rookie season, really only play special teams, be able to learn from Kenny Moore, maybe be able to take some reps at different points in the year. But for the most part, really start to, get more involved in his second or third season. Where when you're talking about Terrion Arnold's a guy where if you don't pay Kenny Moore, you put Terrion Arnold in at the slot position. I feel good about it because, again, football IQ, athleticism, his ability to tackle, right? That's what we were talking about with the 6.5 tackles for loss. He also has a sack in there, 63 total tackles. Like, this is a guy that, when you think about Kenny Moore and everything that he does, this is a guy that can do a lot of the same things, right? Has the tackles for loss, has a sack, the forced fumble, passes defended, interception. He does everything just like Kenny Moore. So if we're talking about, somebody that we might have to replace, and that being Kenny Moore, Terrion Arnold could slot in. Terrion Arnold, I also believe, can just as easily play on the outside. But I honestly think he's a guy that we could draft, and he could be our guy that travels. If there's a receiver that's really, really good, like the best receiver on every single team, Terrion Arnold can travel with him, whether he's playing on the left side or the right side or playing in the slot. Terrion Arnold, I think, is going to be able to come in and be very successful in the NFL. And I think whatever team he ends up being drafted by, they're going to be very happy with the fact that they took a chance on this kid. And just from the little bit that I've seen so far, he has jumped up my board. I think, again, I think he's going to be very good in the NFL. So he's a guy that, as of right now, I'd be pretty happy with the Colts going ahead and drafting Terrion Arnold. We'll see what happens. Combine coming up in a couple weeks. And we're going to, of course, have coverage about that. And we're going to continue to talk more about guys that we could draft. Going to continue to talk about free agency with that coming up very shortly. So make sure you're subscribed and have those notifications turned on so that you get notified when any more of these videos come out. We have daily content on this channel, so don't miss out. Of course, I appreciate you joining me for another video. As always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.